All right, so we are here tonight to talk about home design and real estate astrology. Um, for anyone new, which I don't know, I think there are a couple, my name is Deborah, and I'm the one who started the astrology group originally. And I used to do lots of presentations. This is the first one I've done since the beginning of the year. And this one kind of came by in an odd way. In December, the beginning of December, I had a newspaper reporter call me and ask me to do an interview with her on this subject, on home design and real estate and how they align with astrology. And so I said, sure. And the more I thought about it, and after I um, did all of the gathering, you know, things so that I kind of put the pieces together, because to be honest, I had never really thought about it. The information came in really quickly to me. And I'm thinking mostly because I have Venus ruling my chart. I'm a Taurus ascendant. I also am a Cancer sun. So, and it's in the third house. And my Jupiter is in my fourth house. So I actually have a chart that speaks to being able to talk about this, which I had never really. I didn't realize until she asked me to do the article with her that this isn't a subject that a lot of people discuss. So that's why I decided to do this presentation for the group, because I thought it was something that we could all learn from. All right. So, um, in the modern era, the now, astrology's wisdom extends way, way beyond the realm that they try to keep us in, which is, just personal enlightenment and self-help. It, the principles, if you think about this idea and what you could do with astrology, these can go into finding a home, they can go into home design, they can go into real estate, it can go into anywhere where you want to align the celestial energies and create spaces that resonate with deeply within ourselves. It's taking your external physical environment and bringing it into that energetic realm that gives you the most comfort and satisfaction. And so we're going to see this evening, as we go through this, how understanding the astrological influences can enhance our environment, and how we can make them even more harmonious, perhaps, than what they already are, and align them with our personal energy. Okay. Um, as we move forward, I want you guys to keep in mind the possibilities that astrology presents in creating spaces that are not just physically appealing, but also really spiritually resound within us. Imagine homes and offices that were designed with harmony with the cosmos, and how much they could enhance well-being, creativity, and prosperity. So as we go through this, you kind of open up your mind and start thinking about all the possibilities that this has. So I'm going to start, those of you who know me always start with a little bit of the history. So if we think about architectural wonders of the ancient world, we can really uncover there that they've got like this profound impact on the celestial bodies, on every construction, almost every design back. When you look at the tapestry that architectural history has, there's actually a bit of a reverence when you start studying it for celestial energy, and it's been a cornerstone, actually a really deep influence if you look historically at the cornerstones and the designs and the construction of monuments and spaces and all the things that were built in ancient times. They did a much better job of connecting the heavens and the architecture together. And you can see it. It's really, really well illustrated if we look at some of the marvels of ancient construction and how they were usually extremely steeped, if not purely based upon astronomical and astrological significance. You know, you can look at the Egyptian pyramids. They're a prime example. Um, you know, there you not only see these monumental tombs, but this sophisticated expression of how the Egyptians saw the relationship that they had with the cosmos. You know, the pyramids were all very meticulously aligned with specific stars, and you could see them actually having a desire to for that spiritual alignment and that eternal guardianship by trying to mirror that celestial order that was here on earth that they could see in the cosmos. You also have Stonehenge, another architectural wonder. It exemplifies the ancient mastery of astronomical observation. Its structure, the way it's arranged, it's actually designed to coincide with solstices and equinoxes. And so it stands as a really powerful testament to the ancients' desire to synchronize their creations with the rhythm of the cosmos. You can look at the ancient Greeks. If you look at their temples, how they were designed not only to honor their gods, but also to encapsulate the harmony of the universe. You've got the Parthenon, you know, and it's renowned not only for the Doric elegance, you know, of all the pillars and everything, but also for its alignment towards the rising sun. That illustrated a knowledge they had of a sacred geometrical relationship with the heavens. If we come here to the Americas, you can think about the Mayans and their pyramids and their observatories, and they served dual purposes as well. They had religious significance, but they also had astronomical significance. It was where, and these structures allowed them to track the celestial movements with remarkable accuracy. And so if we look through, you know, historical examples, you see this underscoring of a universal truth that the best that we have for the alignment with celestial energy manifesting in architectural wonders of that ancient world, it demonstrates how our ancestors integrated that astrological and astronomical principles into their constructions because they wanted to harmonize the human existence with the cosmic order. And I have to say that this ancient wisdom, I think, it reminds us of this profound impact that these celestial bodies have had on architectural design and how we as humans are trying to bridge that divide between what's earthly and what's divine. Okay, so if we look at today's world, the timeless wisdom of the aligning of these celestial energies should be something that architects and interior designers consider, I think way more than what they do, because it gives an opportunity to integrate these ancient principles of astrology and astronomy into modern homes, into you know, communal spaces where we share space with others. And I think if they use this approach, it would encourage creation of environments not only reflecting an individual's personal energy, but also to enhance the well-being and the creativity and the prosperity of those people. I want to encourage architects and interior designers, even if it's just the one that lives within you for your own home and your own spaces, to think about things like auspicious dates for when you have groundbreaking ceremonies, or when you have, you know, we need to think more, I think, about bringing a touch of those auspicious moments into projects when it comes to where we're living and where we are spending our time. I think it's also really important to integrate elemental and zodiacal symbols into our homes decors that can create deeper connections between space and those of us here that are on Earth. I think by forming design choices with astrological insights, such as the zodiac signs, because it influences that personal style, or looking at the impact of the planetary positions on living environments, that designers could really bridge a gap between what's mystical and what's material. All right, and here's the gift that I hinted to. Because today this is kind of an overview of this topic, I am actually currently I'm about halfway through writing a book called Stellar Spaces, the Astrological Guide to Real Estate and Home Design. And I am, if things stay on track, it should be available in autumn of this year for purchase, which will be an amazing achievement for me. It will be my first book. But in it, because I don't have the ability to cover all of it here with you, I've included some excerpts from it to give you some extra stuff that I'm not going to have time to cover with you tonight. You're going to have some pages in here that talk about in depth into each of the zodiac signs as far as home design, looking at strategic ways to design, with zodiac elements in a home design. It's going to talk a little bit about the pages that I shared, tailoring design to zodiac, the roles of the planets in astrology and their impacts in living environments. And there's also a section on elemental influence on personal style. Okay, so that is attached if you click on the cover of the book, and that'll get you into that document. Okay, so if you think I've missed something here, it's probably hiding in there. All right, so as we start this conversation, I'm going to start with the astrological home design. Okay, and basically we're going to be kind of marrying the wisdom of ancient astrology with the more modern design principles, to create spaces that resonate deeply with individuals based upon their celestial blueprints, that imprint that we were given when we were born. We're going to be looking at astrological home design, going beyond just aesthetic appealing, but we're also going to be looking at it, as I've mentioned a few times, on creating and enhancing well-being and harmony in the environment to kind of help us balance our energies in our home spaces. Okay. So I'm going to start with where astrology meets home design. We're going to talk about personalizing spaces. So as we explore how astrology and home design intersect, I'm going to introduce this idea of using the zodiac to inform personal style and living space preferences. Each zodiac sign possesses unique characteristics, preferences, and energies, and which can significantly influence an individual's approach to design and how they decorate their homes. An example would be, if we think about Aries, we've got a really fiery and bold kind of energy that goes with Aries. And so they might gravitate more towards really vibrant colors and dynamic spaces. While if we're looking at Taurus, you're looking at a more earthy and serene vibe, which would have them wanting to find like solstice and cozy natural environments. And so simply by just understanding the astrological underpinnings in what we desire in our home spaces, we can create living spaces that are not just places where we reside, but actual reflections of our innermost selves. Okay, so if we look at using the zodiac as a guide, we have to navigate the vast realm of interior design with intuition and insight, right? And if this approach kind of allows us for customized strategy to have home decoration and architecture, but focusing it on the elements that resonate with your zodiacal energies, right? And it's not just about selecting colors or furniture, but it's about creating an ecosystem within a home that harmonizes with the person and their astrological makeup, the one who's occupying. And if this method like elevates home design from purely aesthetic exercise to more of a transformative experience, because you're creating environments that foster that emotional support and that mental and spiritual well-being within your home. All right, so let's take a minute to explore our celestial wheel, because that is where we're going to get all of our zodiac information from. And although most of you, I'm sure, aren't brand new to astrology, just in case someone listening to this now or in the future, I want to just kind of do a little bit of an overview. All right, so our zodiac is comprised of the 12 distinct signs, and the zodiac is divided into 4 elemental groups: fire, earth, air, and water. And each one of these groups represents a core aspect of human experience, and it influences the traits and the tendencies of the signs within it. Right? So if we're looking at the fire signs, which are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, we're looking at passion and dynamic and energetic energies. And the fire signs are known for being enthusiastic and for having a zest for life. If we look at our earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, you're looking at grounded, practical, reliable. Those earth signs value stability and material comfort. If we're looking at our air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, you're looking at intellectual, social, communicative energy. The air signs thrive on interaction and on ideas, thoughts. Our water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, are emotional, intuitive, nurturing. Okay, so the water signs are really deeply in tune with their feelings and the feelings of everyone around them. So you have to think about this as we start breaking this apart into thinking about home design. Right? So zodiac classifications extend their influence into the realm of home aesthetics and design. And each sign's unique traits and preferences can significantly shape the taste in home decor, from the color palettes to the textures to the overall themes. All right, if we look at fire signs are going to be drawn to bold, vibrant colors. They're going to like open and expansive layouts to homes. And it's reflecting a need, and that's why they like that expansiveness, a need for freedom and expression. Right? Look at the earth signs. They're going to prefer natural materials, earthy tones, solid, comforting environment. And that environment needs to reflect their need for that stability and that material security. Right? And then we have our air signs. They're going to look for light and air in their spaces. They're going to want room for social gatherings. They're going to have pastels or vibrant hues of color. They're going to stimulate the mind, and they're going to facilitate communication with these colors and these hues in their home. The water signs are going to try to create really cozy and intimate spaces that serve as almost personal sanctuaries. And in their homes, you're going to see deep and rich colors, and they're going to have fluid designs, kind of echoing that emotional and intuitive fluidity they have, that nature that they carry. By understanding the elemental energy of the zodiac sign, of your zodiac sign, it will offer you insight into your preferred living environment. It will guide you in selection of colors and textures in your environment to help you create a space that truly feels like home. All right. When we when we start looking at the nuances of the zodiac signs, it gives you even more ability to tailor your home to reflect your personality and to nurture your personal growth. Okay. So as we look at taking the elemental influences and thinking about architecture, okay, we're going to work on aligning our architectural choices with our astrological sign. And now this is going a little beyond just what we think is aesthetic. This is actually about creating an environment that goes like on a deeper level within our core being. Because this is where we get to trying to create a harmony between our living spaces and our environmental nature, which can actually significantly enhance our sense of well-being and satisfaction. Let me give you some examples. All right, so let's say we've got a fire sign. They're going to create a space that has ample natural lighting because they're trying to fuel this optimism and drive that they have inherently within them. All right. If we're thinking about an earth sign, they're going to surround themselves with very, and this is an important word, durable materials and timeless designs because they're trying to reinforce that permanence and that security in their homes. Earth signs, and I can speak from my own personal self, I have a tendency to buy furniture that's really expensive, but I buy it with the thought that I'm going to buy it once and it's going to last probably for my lifetime. And I have a tendency to buy things that I can change the coverings and the colors of so that I can bring it forth as my energy needs different things. Okay. So that's kind of an idea of how the earth signs work as far as things being durable. It's like you invest heavily because you want something that's gonna be good for a long, long time, but you want a little bit of versatility in it because it's a permanent piece. When we look at air signs, think open and adaptable architecture. Um, you have to think about having the ability to have variety and social interaction in a space. So they're going to have spaces that can open up or can close in, or that you can move things and make more room or make it more, you know, tight. They're going to have a flexibleness to their environments. When we look at water signs, we're looking at individuals that choose homes that are like retreats. For a water sign, their home is a personal sanctuary because it's where they go to support their emotional depth and their need for privacy. Okay. And so by considering the elemental qualities of our zodiac signs in our text, our text, I'm having trouble getting the word out tonight, our textural decisions, we create not just a house, but you create a home that truly aligns with your astrological identity. And so it fosters a living environment where we can incorporate astrology into our, the choices that are made to empower your way of resonating with the energy that you have. Okay. It's almost like we have to recognize our unique energy for each one of us individually and bring it into that space by honoring it through the design of our home. And whether it's, a warmth and a boldness of the fire, or the stability and the reliability of earth, or the adaptability and the curiosity of air, or the depth and the intuition of water, whatever that elemental nature is, it's going to guide us towards the style that not only appeals to our aesthetic sensibility, but also supports us as far as our well-being and our personal growth. It gives us the ability to have harmony and balance and joy in your everyday life that actually thrives, not where it's something that is just kind of there, or maybe that you hint upon every now and then you come across. All right, so let's look at the zodiac and the influence on colors, schemes, textures, and decor. All right, so when you look at interior design, you've got a whole bunch of avenues for expressing um, how different people find things. But if you look at it through the lens of astrology, each zodiac sign has very unique preferences and energies, and they naturally gravitate towards specific color schemes and textures and decor elements that are just inherent to the traits that they carry. Um, the psychological impact of color can be seen as we look at the zodiac, because it will elevate or it will disrupt energy in a space. And it plays a really crucial role in creating environments that align with our astrological makeup. An example would be, okay, so we've got, let's say you've got an Aries again, bold, adventurous. They're going to find excitement in reds and oranges, because those colors inspire talent. Where, again, if we look at Taurus, in contrast, they would seek those earthy tones and the lush textures, because they're trying to create something very soothing and grounded in their atmosphere. If we look at a Gemini, you're going to see that preference for a palette of yellows and brightness. And you're going to find that they have furniture pieces that are very versatile, that stimulate their mind and encourage them to socially interact with others. By understanding the energetic need of each sign, you're actually you're getting a key when you start selecting the decor and the textures. So like with fire signs, you've got that zest for life. And, they might thrive in spaces with warm colors, dynamic patterns that mirror their enthusiasm and their optimism for life. The earth signs are going to, because of that need for stability, are going to find solstice in things that are very natural. Okay, natural materials, earthy materials. You're going to have them with the cottons and nothing that is synthetic. They're going to want real natural fibers. And they're going to have more of a subdued hue that echoes through their home, that kind of gives them the feeling of having earth surround them and be beneath their feet. Their homes are going to kind of embrace that earth energy. With the air signs, we're looking at light. Like I said, air, maybe high ceilings, lots of windows. You're going to see spaces that are accented with very playful details that foster creativity and connection. With water, you're going to see that emotional depth they have. And you're going to find that they create this sanctuary that is very cool and soothing in color. And they're going to have fluidity in the shapes that are in their home. They're going to feel very organic, and they're going to offer comfort and introspection when you go into that water sign home. You're looking to create like a supportive and personalized living environment. When you start to do this, you want to consider some things. You want to reflect on your sign's elemental energy, because you want to choose a foundational color pattern, color palette, and texture schemes. Okay. You're going to want to incorporate decor elements that resonate with the sign's characteristics, that give the space that you're living in harmony and flow that go along with that sign. You're going to want to try to balance aesthetic appeal with emotional support so that you ensure that your home is not only beautiful, but it feels attuned to you for your inner world. And you're going to want to embrace the influence of the zodiac signs and what they aesthetically find appealing when you start crafting interior that, kind of truly reflects your soul, basically, offering you not just a place to live, but a space to thrive emotionally, mentally, spiritual. You want that, that spiritually, just you want to thrive when you go into your space. All right, so I'm going to go through the signs by element, okay, to kind of piece it together. All right, so we're going to start with the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. All right, so they're known for boldness, luxury, sense of adventure, traits that are naturally extended into interior design preferences for them. They want to embody that element of fire. So they're going to thrive in environments that fuel things to be dynamic, that have spaces that are very creative and have a lot of expression and a lot of warmth to them. All right. If we look at the Aries as an individual, all right, Aries are trailblazers. They prefer design elements that reflect that energetic and pioneering spirit they have. They like bold color choices like reds and oranges that energize Aries. You're going to see them mirroring their passion and their vitality in their home. You're going to see modern and minimalist furniture with very sharp lines and innovative designs that cater to their love and the new and the novel. And they're going to like open spaces because they have an active kind of lifestyle. Next is Leo. All right. There was a question here. Let me check. Came a little late already. Actually, both, Stacy. Think of it by your rising and your sun sign, because I can speak from myself. Rising Taurus, sun Cancer. I actually reflect both the earth and the water in my home. Okay, so it's if you have your rising and your sun that both are the same sign, then you want to focus in heavily on that element and the what goes with that sign. But you can like look at both. Look at the rising and the sun. Okay. All right, back to Leo. All right, so Leos crave luxury, drama. They seek spaces that kind of reflect their kind of regal and theatrical nature. They like very warm, rich colors, golds, royal purples, sunny yellows. They have a bit of a lavishness for their taste. They like to create kind of a backdrop in their home of being sophisticated, but yet warm. They like plush furnishings, very opulent textures, velvets, silks, and they like to have decor pieces that make statements. Things like bold artwork or maybe an eye-catching chandelier. Things of that nature are going to satisfy their desire for a space that's luxurious, but also inviting. Okay. When we look at the Sagittarius, Sagittarius are the adventurers of the zodiac. So they're going to be drawn to design elements that reflect their love for exploring and for freedom. They're going to have earthy tones, but they're going to be combined with really vibrant accents that almost kind of imitate a variety of landscapes as they yearn to explore. And so their decor is probably going to be a little eclectic because it's going to be full of things that they've collected from their experiences where they've traveled or things that personalize their space to the seeking and the adventures that they've gone on in their lives. Their furniture is going to be comfortable and functional, but it's going to have to suit their need for freedom and spontaneity as well. So you're looking at something that allows for easy reconfiguration, to keep that space fresh and adaptable. So when we think about the fire signs, we're looking at creating a space that fuels their nature. And it's not just about that aesthetic appeal, but it's also about creating that environment that's going to resonate with them. Bold colors, luxurious textures, versatility, having some dynamic layouts to them, their homes, allowing these signs to truly feel at home and kind of give them a space that they come to that inspires them and energizes them. I would say, in essence, the design, if you're designing for fire signs, that means you're going to try to create an atmosphere where you have innate creativity and leadership and that adventurous spirit that they have. It has the ability to flourish in that environment. All right. Now we're going to look at the earth signs. All right. So our earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. Now, and I almost feel like I've repeated this a dozen times, but with them, it's all about stability, practicality, and tradition. All right. In their living spaces, these values come through as a preference for comfort, functionality, and timeless elegance. Earth signs seek environments that offer a sense of grounding and durability. And they have their environment has to resonate with their inner needs for reliability and order. Okay, if we look at the Taurus, okay, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Taurus finds their solstice in sensory comforts of home. All right, they will gravitate towards luxurious things, but yet they have to be practically designed. Things that appeal to the senses. They like soft textures, rich, earthy color palettes, really high quality materials. They incorporate really natural elements like wood and stone into their homes. But they'll take that wood and stone and they'll put it alongside of maybe some plush furniture or some indulgent fabrics, or maybe an indulgent kind of rug, something that's going to satisfy that desire for a space that's not only visually appealing, but also immensely comfortable. All right. Virgos. When we think Virgos, we have to think about their meticulous nature. It's reflected in their preference for very clean and minimalistic spaces, where everything has a space and a place. They're going to have a lot of functionality and organization. That's like the top for Virgos. They're going to focus on smart storage solution and clutter-free environments. They're going to go with subdued colors that are very natural, natural materials. They're trying to create kind of a calm and soothing atmosphere for themselves. But they want everything to be very well crafted, and they want their furniture to be very functional so that it caters to really practical needs without sacrificing style. Okay. Capricorn, traditional and elegant. That's how Capricorn approach home design. They favor classic and timeless style. They speak to durability and quality. They have dark, rich colors, structured furniture pieces that kind of evoke a sense of permanence and authority. You will find that they align their disciplined nature with their furnishings. You will see an incorporating of elements of heritage, such as maybe vintage decor or things that are heirloom pieces. You're going to see lots of personal touches that resonate their respect for their history and their legacy. Okay. With the earth signs, basically you have to integrate those natural elements and that timeless design. Those are kind of your key strategies. You're going to create living spaces that not only reflect the value that the earth signs have, but also that stability and that comfort that they're craving. You're going to want to think practical, functional, um, connection to nature. I would say that with them, you want to try to craft homes that are very foundational and offer that kind of that serenity from the outside world, where they can kind of find some balance and they can recharge. Okay. Air signs. All right. With our air signs, we have Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. With them, you have to breathe life into their living spaces. You're going to do it with light and you're going to do it with openness. That stimulates their intellect and it fosters that need for social connection. You are going to see their environments characterized by their love for communication and balance and innovation. These signs create environments that mirror the intellect that they have, very intellectual natures, and they blend aesthetics and functionality in really unique and strange ways. They will put things together that are very unique. With Geminis, you're looking at you have to capture versatility and changeable spaces that kind of cater to their ever evolving interest, because they have a spattering of interest, and they're what they find fascinating is continually changing. And you also have to create space that goes with that their social nature. So you're looking at bright, airy rooms with adaptable furniture arrangements that suit their desire for variety and spontaneity. You have to incorporate really vibrant pops of color and very eclectic decor, because it stimulates their intellectual needs, and it really, really stimulates curiosity. And the more open plan layout you can get, the more happy they are. They thrive on those open layout plans. Libra, we're looking at harmony and aesthetic is top for them. Okay. And so you have to seek balance in their environment, both in form and in function. So you have to create spaces that are as beautiful as they are comfortable. They go with soothing, soft color palettes, and you can pair them with really elegant and symmetrical design elements that kind of reflect that innate sense of style and justice that they have. Libra's living spaces often feature really artful displays and sophisticated decor that encourage both conversation and contemplation, and things that embody their very diplomatic and sociable traits that they have. With Aquarius, you're looking at infusing homes with innovation and uniqueness. You have to think forwardly and think humanitarian. These are spaces that are going to be modern, but personal. They're going to have very idealistic and inventive characteristics. These are where you're going to find really unusual color combinations, maybe futuristic furniture, technology being integrated into the design is going to have to happen. You're going to see them kind of have these kind of avant-garde tastes that you have to kind of blend all together. And the areas in their homes that are communal, where they're designed to kind of facilitate a place in their home where they exchange ideas or they have collective activities, are very valuable to them. So you have to make sure that you have a large space that they can have that energy exchange. Yeah. When we look at the air signs altogether, you're looking at, you have to create an environment that reflects the need for communication, the need for intellectual stimulation, and the need for social interaction. That's the bottom line. You've got to have that fluidity, that versatility, that where things are aesthetically pleasing, but yet very unique. Lightness, openness. For them, they feel really at home when you put them in a space that is not just lived in, but is actually intellectually and socially alive. All right, our water signs. When we look at the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, they naturally seek environments that offer them emotional depth and comfort. For them, you have to craft spaces that serve as a very nurturing retreat because of their sensitivities. Their homes need to be more than just a living space. They have to be really, and I repeat the word over and over, but a sanctuary, an intimate sanctuary where they have time and space to be very reflective emotionally and creatively. They have to embody intuition and fluidity. For Cancer, you're looking at a sign here where home is their haven. It is where they find comfort and security. And so you have to reflect that nurturing and protective nature in their homes. You're looking at soft textiles, really comfortable furniture, palettes of very soothed oceanic colors that create a really a calming sense and a sense of belonging. You will have in their home family heirlooms, personal memorabilia that are featured prominently. They're going to ground their spaces in a sense of history and emotional significance. Cancer's living environment is going to be a very cozy cocoon, offering warmth and refuge from the outside world. When we look at Scorpio's homes, you're looking at a home that's going to mirror their complexity and their introspective spirit. Their designs are going to evoke depth and intensity. You're going to have dark, rich colors, deep reds, purples, blacks, along textured materials. You're going to have almost like creating an atmosphere of mystery, but yet very sophisticated. Scorpio is going to prefer intimate spaces in their homes that facilitate privacy and contemplation, very strategic lighting that can transform the ambiance in just a moment. Their space is their sanctuary for regeneration. And so it's going to be reflecting kind of a resilient and transformative nature that they have. When we look at Pisces, you want to think ethereal and dreamy. Pisces finds solstice in very imaginative and artistic spaces that nurture their creative and spiritual pursuits. So you're looking at fluid designs, reflective surfaces. This is, you're gonna see mirrors and metallics. They're gonna have palettes of tranquil blues and greens that kind of mimic that serene depth of oceans. You're going to see them incorporate elements like water features or aquariums or things that, create very soothing, meditative qualities in their environments. Basically, for a Pisces, their home is their realm of inspiration and escape. And so it's where their imaginations kind of roam free. When you look at these water signs, you're going to want to think softness, soft textiles, some depth in colors, but not necessarily vibrance, just depth. Very fluid designs that kind of go with water. Think of that water fluidity to mirror that sensitivity. They're going to definitely all incorporate places that are that give them emotional privacy and solstice. Um, you're looking for a place where they can sit and their creativity will bloom. But it's got to be in an area where there's comfort and intimacy, and but also it's offering them strength and renewal so that they have the ability to maintain their compassionate natures and let their imagination kind of thrive. Okay. All right. So overall, to kind of tie this the design piece of this together, um, when you're trying to enhance well-being through using astrology and design, you're basically looking at kind of the significance of taking a living environment and taking that space and mirroring your own personal identity and preferences, that are way beyond just being appealing to the eye. You really need to try to create that space that touches your soul and really affects you emotionally and mentally so that it gives you health in those areas. Um, this is that a place where that concept of using astrology and design really enters and marries. You're kind of marrying the ancient wisdom with modern living spaces to enhance well-being. And so by doing all the aligning in your home with with astrology, you're creating environments that are resonating you and also resonating the energy of the world and your place in that space. All right. So, it's when you start doing the astrological designing, you know, you have to think of it as like a holistic approach to home design, one that kind of transcends what's just pretty to more of what's physically and emotionally and spiritually needed. And it's really a journey of self-discovery. You have to invite yourself to explore your zodiac signs and kind of integrate those astrological elements into your living space and create environments where you don't just live, but you flourish. Okay. All right. Now, the second piece of this is looking at real estate astrology. So, in real estate, when you think about applying astrology to it, it gives us a lens of making informed decisions that kind of cover a range from maybe the timing of when to buy something or selecting a place to buy something. And astrology really kind of, again, takes you out a step, and it takes you beyond just the practical aspects of buying and selling property and has you kind of go in and look at all of the cosmic things that affect that in our lives. All right. So when we are thinking about choosing the right place, the right time, looking for the rightness of things and how to use astrology. All right. Let's look at timing. All right. So as far as timing, all right, astrologically, certain periods are considered much more auspicious for making investments or changes, like buying a home or selling a property. Examples for that would be you've got Jupiter. When Jupiter moves through a favorable position in a natal chart, as it's transiting, could easily indicate that it's a good time for real estate transactions. Whereas if we look at Mercury and say it's in a retrograde, perhaps then you might see it you might be advised against maybe signing a contract or uh, or maybe finding that there are misunderstandings or delays or those kinds of things. When you look at location selection, the choice of location can be influenced by astrology too. Each zodiac sign will resonate with a different environment. Water signs usually feel more at home near bodies of water, where earth signs usually prefer locations that are more grounded, like being living in rural or suburban versus cities. You've got also the tool of astrocartography, which gives us the method of mapping planetary positions over the Earth's surface based on your birth information that can provide insight into, the right geographical locations for success, for love, for growth. You also have property selection. Beyond the timing and the location, astrology can guide selection of a property themselves. Again, if you take the characteristics of the zodiac signs, they will give you hints on the types of homes that might offer the most comfort and potential for an individual. Like Leos might be drawn to properties, that give them space for entertaining, while a Virgo might be more drawn to a property that is more functional and it's has the potential to be more orderly. That market trends. If you look at astrological cycles, they give a huge amount of information on overall, real estate market trends. They offer a really, macroscopic view of potential shifts and changes. And so that kind of gives us an understanding when you understand these cycles and you watch them, that if you're somebody who is wanting to invest in homes, or if you're a homeowner thinking about selling or making some kind of strategic decision, you can find kind of those cosmic rhythms, see if they're aligning. Basically, if we integrate astrology insight into real estate decisions, it gives us the ability to align our actions with the cosmos. And so it gives the ability to navigate through the market with kind of an extra added layer of guidance. And if you use kind of that approach when you start thinking about real estate things, it gives you kind of a path to decisions that you'll find maybe is resonating more deeply within you than if you weren't using astrology when you were making these choices. Okay, so we're going to look at Mercury and Venus, and we're going to look at some of the other planets in transiting and their effects on real estate. We have what they call the Mercury retrograde effect. So in astrology, the movement of a planet holds a lot of sway over our lives. We know that as individuals, but you can also take that into real estate transactions. One of the most discussed astrological events when it comes to contracts and communication and travel is Mercury, and when it's retrograde. And so, this happens approximately times a year when we've got the Mercury appearing to move backwards in the sky, which symbolizes a time of reflection, reassessment, maybe potential delays or some kind of misunderstanding in our life. So when we think about that in regards to real estate, you could have communication challenges when Mercury's in retrograde. You might have some kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication that complicates a negotiation or a signing or some kind of clear conveyance of intentions in some kind of real estate deal. You could have contract delays. Again, you might have, an increased potential for miscommunication or oversight where, maybe something gets delayed, or maybe you have to revise something, or you get some unforeseen complication that delays real estate deals. You could see this as a time when you need to kind of revisit past deals. And this is kind of a positive note. You've got Mercury retrograde is a really auspicious time for revisiting and reassessing previous decisions. So if we look at that in the light of real estate, this might mean like reconsidering maybe a past property that for interest, or renegotiating terms of a loan, or maybe resolving some outstanding issue with the property transaction. Okay. I would say that if you were going to purchase real estate during Mercury retrograde, you would want to make sure you double check your details, that you are flexible. Be prepared for delays, and you keep your schedule flexible when it comes to time. Um, Always make sure to finalize before or after. If possible, aim to finalize important real estate deals before Mercury goes retrograde, or wait until it goes direct to proceed with something, because this would reduce the likelihood of encountering the hurdles that might be associated with this period of time. Other thing to do would be to try to leverage retrograde periods, because when Mercury is in retrograde, you have to, often it's viewed with caution. Understand its influence allows individuals and real estate professionals to navigate with periods through, with greater awareness and with strategy. And so instead of rushing forward during this time, use this time to review and reflect, and to kind of ensure that when Mercury does finally go retrograde, that the decisions that you are making, you've made them with clarity and with confidence. Okay. When we look at Venus, think of Venus as property value. The Venus effect is, basically Venus symbolizes love, beauty, finance. And so it has a really profound influence on real estate from, an astrological perspective. It dictates our taste. It attracts us to luxury and comfort. It affects our perception of value. And so in the realm of real estate, Venus's influence can be seen in the aesthetic appeal of a property, in its overall desirability, and in its market value. Properties that resonate, with Venus qualities, harmony, beauty, and luxury, tend to be perceived as being more valuable and more appealing to people who are buying them. The position and phase of Venus can significantly impact the timing of real estate transactions. And so when Venus is well aspected in the sky, it's an opportune time for both buying and selling property. And often these periods coincide with like a heightened appreciation for beauty and the value of homes. And it makes it an ideal time for sellers to kind of showcase their properties, and for buyers that they find particularly appealing or valuable. You want to, when you have these times when Venus is well influenced, you want to capitalize on those times. If you've got a property you're trying to sell, that's when you want to launch the listing for it. Also, if you're trying to buy one, it's when you want to make offers, when Venus is direct and well positioned. Especially when it's in signs that are known for luxury and stability, like Taurus and Libra, right? So those would be the best times to get faster sales, or maybe have more satisfying transactions when you sell something. It's also, you can use Venus and, kind of the Venusian principles when you're staging a home for sale. You want to emphasize that beauty and harmony and luxury that property has in its presentation, which could involve things like aesthetic touches that appeal to senses, like maybe some elegant decorations, or maybe a harmonious color scheme, or maybe having some luxurious amenities to attract buyers more effectively. When Venus is in retrograde, which occurs about every 18 months, that's when you could have challenges in real estate. When Venus is in retrograde, our perception of love, beauty, and value gets skewed. And so it leads to potential misjudgments in the value of property. Right? So is a time when you want to have caution in transactions. It's really advisable to exercise caution anytime you're making a financial decision that's significant, especially a real estate one, when Venus is in retrograde. The risk of overestimating a property's value or its aesthetic appeal is higher during this period. These are the periods when you buyers have that regret for decisions they made when Venus was in retrograde. It's also a time where you want to try to delay major decisions. If it's at all possible, when Venus is in retrograde, you want to delay finalizing sales or purchases until after Venus goes back to direct motion. The waiting period will give you additional time for reflection and that reassessment to make sure that the decision is made with clear understanding of what that property's value and appeal truly is. And it's also, when Venus is in retrograde, a time, again, like with Mercury, to kind of review and reassess. It gives you the opportunity to kind of review the negotiations that are going on and kind of reassess the terms of the deal. It's a really excellent time to for sellers to kind of refine their property's presentation, and for buyers to kind of reconsider what their loves are or what their deal breakers are in a home. Okay. Next thing to consider, the moon's phases and real estate. Okay, you guys know how much I love them. When we look at moon cycles, we're looking from the new moon to the full moon and back. They have a significant role in timing real estate transactions. Each phase has its own energies that can be leveraged for different aspects of buying and selling properties. Okay, if we look at the new moon is basically, it's the foundation for new ventures. The new moon is the phase that symbolizes presenting an optimal moment for initiating real estate activity. It's the perfect time for sellers to list properties, to kind of capture that phase's essence of new beginnings to attract potential buyers. It's a really good time, if you're a real estate agent, to launch marketing campaigns. And for buyers, it's a really auspicious time to start house hunting. All of these should be done under a banner of setting like a clear intention to secure favorable outcomes. Okay, that's the new moon. When we look at the waxing moon, you're looking at the building momentum. As the moon waxes towards being full, it embodies growth and accumulation, and it makes it ideal for escalating real estate efforts. This is the phase that suggests a strategic period for increasing property viewings, intensifying marketing endeavors to build interest. For a seller, it would be a time to create kind of a competitive environment during this phase that can lead to better offers. You want to try to leverage the waxing moon energy to foster engagement and to attract that prosperity, that money. When you get to the full moon, we're looking at culmination and insight. The full moon phase kind of stands as a beacon of completion, realization. It kind of illuminates the path to finalizing deals and celebrating achievements. And so it provides a really potential and potent backdrop for closing transactions, where the efforts initiated during the new moon, they come to fruition. This is also a period that offers clarity and insight, which kind of helps to resolve any lingering, maybe uncertainties about things. It makes it a prime time for decision making and achieving successful sales. The waning moon is the reflection and conclusion. And so following the peak of that full moon, that waning moon phase kind of shifts the focus towards reflection and release and readiness for renewal. And so this is a period to kind of wrap up pending transactions, clear out properties. If it's necessary, maybe adjust strategies for anything that's not sold. It's a time for kind of tying up the loose ends and kind of ensuring that all aspects of a sale are finalized, paving the way for that fresh cycle to begin with the next new moon. Um, I would say by integrating lunar timing into real estate practices, that you benefit from that additional layer of that cosmic insight, and it enhances like the effectiveness and the satisfaction of buying and selling things. All right, our planetary transits. All right, integrating the planetary transits into real estate decisions not only improves and provides a really unique perspective, but it also aligns with our actions with like the energies. And so you can have potentially, it can really enhance the outcomes of any kind of property transaction. Okay, so let's look first at Jupiter. All right, Jupiter. When we look at Jupiter, we think planet of abundance, planet of prosperity, brings expansion to wherever it goes. So when it's transiting through the fourth house, which represents home, family, and emotional foundations, that can indicate a period where expanding your living space or relocating to a home that better suits you um, brings great benefits. Similarly, when you have Jupiter transiting through the second house of personal finances, it can signal a really good phase for making like a significant investment in real estate, maybe adding to your capacity for wealth generation. Right? When we look at Saturn, Saturn emphasizes structure, responsibility, long-term planning. And so when it transits through the second house, it marks a time for rigorous financial discipline. And it makes a really excellent period of time for saving towards like maybe purchasing a home or investing in real estate with a long-term perspective. And so when you've got Saturn then moving on to the fourth house, when it transits the fourth house, it might indicate a phase of reevaluation, of maybe solidification of a home base, possibly prompting renovations or relocations that require a really serious commitment, but offer really long lasting stability. Okay, Uranus. Uranus introduces elements of surprise and innovation, and its influence when it's in the third house, associated with communication and short trips, might suggest like a sudden opportunity to buy or sell a property that comes through maybe your social network or the immediate community that you're in. And when Uranus is transiting the ninth house, that's that long distance travel, that higher learning. Uranus could indicate a chance to invest in or to move to a property maybe that's abroad. It also could offer like maybe just a completely new way of life in some place very different. When we look at Neptune, planet of dreams, intuition, this is going to bring you a layer of idealism and imagination to any area it touches. So if we're looking at it through the lens of real estate, Neptune transit can heighten your sensitivity towards the emotional and the aesthetic aspects of your home. So it's going to make you more attuned to properties that fulfill your ideal living situation. So during Neptune's transit, say through the fourth house, you might find yourself drawn to homes that offer a sense of escape or that serve as a personal sanctuary and emphasize the importance of emotional, resonance over very practical considerations. However, Neptune's influence could also lead to illusion, which so it's really crucial to kind of maintain a balance between that idealism and that reality when you're looking at Neptune. And so you have to ensure that as far as real estate goes, that your emotional desires are not clouding your practical needs and your financial feasibility. And so When Neptune's involved, this would be a period excellent for envisioning your home dream, but you have to exercise caution to avoid overlooking the potential flaws in pursuit of perfection. All right. And then we have Pluto. Pluto is transformation and regeneration, and it signals deep and often unexpected changes in the areas where it's transiting. And so, again, if we're looking at it in context with real estate, if Pluto is transiting through fourth house, it can mark a really powerful period of transformation in a living situation. This might involve radical change, such as maybe undertaking significant renovations to your home, maybe completely transforming a living space, maybe relocating to someplace radically different, a different kind of environment, or maybe making a real estate investment that significantly alters your financial landscape. Pluto's energy demands honesty, and it could uncover hidden issues with a property, or maybe with your perception of what home means, prompting really deep reflection and like potentially leading to profound life changes. When Pluto is transiting, it's intense. We know this. And it ultimately aims to strip away what is no longer serving you. So that makes room for things to be more authentic and more empowering. And that includes your relationship with your living environment, especially if it's at the fourth house. All right. Let's talk about integrating houses into real estate decisions. All right. The natal chart's houses play a crucial role in astrology. Each kind of represents different aspects of our lives. And so when the planets transit these houses, they activate and they influence the areas of life associated with those houses. So if we understand these influences, it gives us insight into real estate decisions, be it buying or selling or even investing. So if we look at the second house, the second house is your value and your possessions. It's going to govern your personal assets, your values, your material resources. When planets transit this house, they influence our financial stability and the decisions that we make regarding property investments and acquisitions. And favorable transits can indicate a good time to buy property or to make significant improvements to your existing home. Third house. This house relates to our immediate environment, including our neighbors, our local travel, communication. When you have transits through the third house, it affects our interactions with, say, real estate agents or contractors or legal professionals. And so it might indicate a favorable period for buying or selling property within your local area or making decisions about rental properties. Fourth house, home and family, directly tied to real estate. Fourth house influences our sense of home, family, emotional foundations. Transits here can bring significant change to living environments, such as buying a new home, relocating, renovating. Basically, you're trying to better suit your needs for security and comfort when you have the transits with the fourth house. Eighth house. Eighth house is shared resources and transformation. This house is going to deal with joint finances, loans, taxes, inheritance, shared property. And so planetary movements through the eighth house can signify shifts in financial arrangements related to real estate, such as refinancing a mortgage or dealing with rental properties or managing inherited properties. And then we have our ninth house. Ninth house encompasses, long distance travel, foreign affairs, higher education. Transits through this house can suggest opportunities or challenges related to properties in distant locations or in foreign investments. And so it might also kind of be a time when you're drawn to explore real estate markets outside your usual boundaries, potentially leading to an investment, maybe in a vacation home or a property in some other country. Okay, so by using the, and understanding the dynamics of the houses and their impacts on real estate decisions, it allows us to kind of align our actions with the most favorable astrological conditions, which enhance the potential for success and satisfaction in property related matters. We also have, using astrocartography for location. We've had a couple presentations in the past on astrocartography, so I'm not really going to dig deep into astrocartography. I'm simply going to bring it out as definitely a tool, an astrological tool that offers a really unique way to explore how different geographical locations can influence our personal growth and our success and our well-being. And so, when you look at it, basically that astrocartography map is going to position the planets on your individual birth chart across the Earth's surface. And each planet's line on that map are going to suggest areas of influence. So, you might have your Jupiter line, which would suggest that that would be a location where you would find success or expansion. Or maybe you've got your Venus line, which would be an area that would indicate maybe places that are conducive to having love and harmony in your life. Maybe if you're thinking about career and success, you'd want to find locations, again, that were Jupiter based because, you've got growth and opportunity there. It would enhance your career perspective and your financial success. Maybe your sun line might be what you want to look at if you were looking for creativity and self-expression. So you could do your sun line where you want to be able to kind of be an individual and kind of express, who you are and you want to thrive in, which could work for if you're an artist or an entrepreneur or really anybody who's trying to stand out in their life. Maybe they feel like they've been background for too much of their lifetime. I would say where you could apply astrocartography in the conversation we're having, definitely relocation. If somebody is feeling stuck or feel like they're seeking a change in their personal or their professional life, astrocartography would be a wonderful way to go about identifying a location that would offer new opportunities or new growth. So basically, astrocartography is a layer in this that you can utilize. All right. And to bring this to a close, I have 4 quick scenarios of ways that this can be utilized. Okay. I wanted to give you examples. I've given you a whole lot of information, some examples of how to use this information. All right. Example number 1. This is, let's say we're thinking about renovating with Cancer in mind. Okay. So in our scenario, let's explore the idea you've got renovation of a home owned by somebody who's Cancer. And we're going to focus on how the astrological insights into that homeowner's sun sign can help us guide the selection of design elements to create that nurturing sanctuary that Cancer would need. Okay. So we know Cancer is a water sign. It's known for depth and connection to home and family. It values comfort, security, emotional depth. And so the renovation process has to embrace these qualities. And so we have to infuse this space with those elements for Cancer's kind of nurturing spirit. So you could use like a design philosophy that would be based around maybe creating a space that feels like a warm embrace, someplace, that is safe and loving. You could literally, take this intention and kind of shape every decision with it, from your layout to your lighting, ensuring that this home is like a retreat from the outside world. You could have water-inspired decor, maybe something that, is offering that calmness and that fluidity. So we could use some blues and some greens as our color palette. Maybe we could have some like serene water landscape, or maybe an indoor fountain that would introduce that soothing sound of water running in the home to kind of give that tranquility. Think soft lighting. We want to just kind of continue to create this cozy and warm environment. So have soft lighting, maybe layered lighting that has dimmable light, overhead lighting, or maybe some wall sconces, candles, something that allows for the adjusting of the ambiance to kind of be able to imitate that comfort of the moon, kind of thing for Cancer. As far as furnishings go, maybe we want to go with comfort, functionality. So maybe some plush sofas, some soft throw blankets, maybe a really supportive chair too. And each piece would, you wouldn't just be aesthetically appealing, but it would have to kind of, when you look at it, think, oh, I want to sit down there and relax. Or this would be a really nice place if the family was over where we could all sit down and relax together. With it being a Cancer's environment, we want to kind of remember to incorporate those cherished mementos in family photos. Maybe create like a custom display case for things, or have a specialized area where you can kind of get a sense of the history and the emotional significance of those items for that person. So we could take all of these elements and you could kind of combine them together. And so basically you could take this renovation and kind of create a sanctuary that truly reflects that homeowner's Cancer qualities. It's a space where comfort meets that emotional depth, but is very nurturing and supports the family bonding and that personal, retreatness. An idea if you were trying to redo a space for a certain individual. Okay, let's think about scenario 2. Let's use that astrocartography for relocating. Okay, so let's say for a couple, would you want to do a synastry chart? I can answer this question, Stacy, because my husband and I, it's interesting because he is Pisces and he is a Scorpio ascendant. So he has a lot of water. I'm a Cancer sun, but I'm a Taurus rising. And so we have kind of a flowing, it's a fascinating decor we have because the Taurus in me requires a lot of that earthiness. And so we have wooden floors. We have lots of stone in our home. We have, we're rural. So we have a very, rural environment on the external part of our home. But yet with him, he likes blues and he likes greens and he likes that fluidity to the environment. So you're looking at a combination. So I would definitely say when you were looking at a couple, you'd want to start by looking at their signs. If they were completely opposite, at that point, I would then go to doing not a synastry, well, a synastry chart, but not a straight synastry chart, but actually a combined chart. I would go to doing a combined synastry chart, possibly even going so far as to looking at the Davidson and looking at the sun and the ascendant for both those combined charts, because that might give you an idea of how to find a middle ground that they both would harmonize with. So with this example, thinking about, just trying to buy a home based on astrocartography. So basically, you'd have an individual and they would be feeling stagnant. And so they want to make a change. So you would want to, especially if they're looking for growth and opportunity, I would focus in on Jupiter. Because that Jupiter line would be a place where they could have expansion, maybe some good fortune. So I would go and find that space and, you know, go, if you're looking for astrocartography, go to the consultation, have an astrologer look at your astrocartography and tell you where your Jupiter line is and what's there. And then do some research. Look at the identified city and start researching what's their job markets, what's their lifestyle, what kind of community do they have there. You know, make sure that the move is not only astrologically favorable, but actually is practically viable. And then you've got the preparation, So when you start preparing for this move, you want to make practical and emotional readiness. You want to start embracing that change to step forward. And so hopefully when you made that move, you would have, shortly after you would relocate, hopefully you would find a job, or maybe you'd have a job before you even got there as you were doing the research, because you're on your Jupiter line. So it's promising you expansion. Maybe when you got there, you would have personal development, you get new friendships, new interests, have an enhanced sense of being, well, just a happiness within that you didn't have. You could look for, with it being your Jupiter line, maybe some unexpected opportunities. So you might want to go in anticipating changes, realizing that you're going to a place where you might have a lot of career and personal success. So think about your aspirations. When you're using astrocartography, you're taking the gift of being able to go to where you are aligned with an environment. I would also suggest, if you were using astrocartography for thinking about selecting a home, I would actually go and visit that spot and see what it feels like for you. You can usually feel if you're doing an astrocartography chart and you use it, especially if you're trying to use it for vacations, and pick out spots that are on cross lines or, very specific spots, that it is an awesome way just to go and visit, because you feel that energy when you go into that environment. Third scenario, timing a property sale. All right. So in this one, you have a property and you're trying to sell it. You want to get rid of it. So we're going to focus on Venus. All right. And so basically, my astrological advice would be to the homeowner, I would look for a real estate agent with astrological, expertise, or somebody who's willing to talk to an astrologer to gain from your expertise. They're willing to listen. Although I have to say, I actually know one or two astrological real estate agents. So I know it's possible to find them, the ones that are. And you'd want to look for somebody with those positive Venus influences. You'd want to focus on using that Venus energy for good financial transactions, for it to be a lucrative sale, to ways to enhance the property appeal so that more people want to buy them. When you were prepping it, you would want to try to, leading up to that good transit, you'd want to try to focus on preparing your property, making it look as nice as you could, get that curb appeal going so that a Venus association is there with beauty. List it strategically. When Venus enters that favorable position, put the ad out there, and all of that hopefully would bring forth the idea of a successful sale, a property that sold quickly. Maybe you got more money for it than you were expecting. Something that attracted lots of offers because it was very appealing and it was astrologically a favorable period. And something that was satisfying for the homeowner. The people who bought the house were very satisfied. You were satisfied, not only financially, but because it was a smooth deal and it went through smoothly because you used the timing based around Venus and her favorable placement. And my last example would be staging a home using Zodiac Insights. if you have, let's say, okay, you have a home for sale and you are trying to tailor it for a specific type of zodiac sign, you could utilize what we know about the astrological insights to create marketing strategy for this. Let's say that you know ahead of time that there's a prospective buyer in a certain zodiac sign and you want to try to sell them your house. You could stage it with things that were aesthetically appealing in color and in theme, things that would cause that individual to have an immediate emotional connection to that home. I mean, imagine how valuable that this would be if you had a real estate agent and they were showing homes regularly that actually kind of have an idea of what would appeal to this, and then actually layer things in so that it is truly appealing to that type of individual. So that as soon as they walk in, that zodiac sign is grabbed and they got to have this house, you know. Hopefully the outcome would be immediate connection by staging it for a certain element. You would have somebody walk in and it would be like they would feel like it was designed for them. It would be a really deep connection to the property. That connection would facilitate a really smooth and very swift sale because the buyer would be inclined to want to make an offer because they would be convinced that this property is going to fit their lifestyle and their personality. And I think also the buyer would be very appreciative the attention to detail and the personal touches, not realizing that they were actually created for them. So if you think about trying to sell something in real estate and staging it towards a certain buyer's zodiac preference, you immediately elevate the likelihood of you being able to sell something and it being enjoyed by the person who buys it. Okay, I've gotten to the end. Questions? Thoughts? Our next event is April 12th, and it's the Peace Dealer. He's going to speak on how to speak astrology. And on May the 10th, we have Debbie Ritter coming, and she is going to connect how to discover your soul through astrology and the Akashic Records, which I think is going to be a delightful program. Kathy says, I understand now why my husband and I have some challenges finding our current home. Yes. Yeah. Like I said, there are so many things that astrology has that is just amazing. It clarifies so much. It is such an instruction manual for each one of us as an individual for all aspects of our life. There's really no aspect that astrology can't speak to if you allow it.